You made it. Congratulations for signing up for Impact and Income for the full course. As a reminder, you not only get the 8 modules, you also have support in our community and our monthly mastermind. So make sure you take advantage of that. In Module 2, we'll be discussing how to thrive in your values-driven career. But really, this is more of the theme for all the modules. And so we're specifically, though, going to dive into your values. And this one is a lot of internal reflection compared to some of the other modules that are more fact-based. This is more internal-based. And we're going to focus on how your values drive the whole rest of your plan. So we have this hierarchy of financial needs here, but the values radiates through all of it. You know, your career sustainability, your health span, all of these other things, such as leaving a legacy, all related to core values. So we're going to start by creating your values-driven financial plan. Before we dive into your values, I want to give you a big picture of where we're heading in this course. So Module 1, what you just watched, which by the way, if you didn't watch all of Module 1, I would recommend going back to watch all of Module 1 because I'll reference things from Module 1 in the rest of the modules. So here's some challenges. This is a little different than the misconceptions. It's just thinking about how service-driven professionals have a different way that they need to achieve financial freedom compared to the rest of society. So for one, the challenge is that employment is often emotional. There's often sometimes moral dilemmas where you're just dealing with a lot. There's often work-life balance struggles, and sometimes there's resource constraints. And so our solution to that is actually this module where you're going to think about how to deal with it all and how to thrive in your values-driven career. And the next challenge is that oftentimes service-driven professionals overutilize bad debt and might have too much bad debt, but underutilize debt as a tool. So we'll address that in Debt as a Tool, Not a Demon, Module 3. Next, oftentimes we haven't learned financial education in the same way as maybe some of our business friends or people who studied finance. I mean, then again, even people in business and finance often don't always understand financial planning or even basic concepts like compounded interest. And so, you know, because you haven't had the education, oftentimes you're not taking on enough risk either when it comes to investing. And so we're going to tackle that through Investing 101. I'm going to assume that you have no education at all in investing. And even if you do have education in investing, I think maybe you'll still get something out of the Investing 101, the 3 forms of investment diversification, because a lot of people who have been investing still lack a lot of these forms. Next up, often your financial plan lacks multiple sources of income and diversification and tax strategy. And that we're addressing in Module 5, Impact Entrepreneurship for Income Streams. So we're going to get you just an overall more solid plan with greater earnings potential overall. Another problem, living paycheck to paycheck. That's also kind of related to Module 5, but specifically, if you decide that you actually don't want to have anything to do with business or investing, and you'd rather just be more intentional with your income, that's what Module 6 is about how to do it effectively and how to make it enjoyable. And then one other challenge is burnout rates, because we all know it's hard to be in a service-driven role for a long time. It might be easy your first 5 years, and then it just can get harder and harder, or you have a lot of periods of ups and downs. And so that's where we discuss the concept of rest as the joyful alternative to traditional retirement. Oh yeah, the other issue is that a lot of us aren't ready for retirement even though we're working really hard. And so that's where this concept of rest comes in, and successive sabbaticals. And we'll talk about that in Module 7. And finally, service-driven mindset traps. I introduced some in Module 1. So we will specifically look at modern money mindset and how that's a little bit different from what you've learned before, potentially. All right, that was kind of the big course overview. Now we're going to deep dive into you. Now let's dive into your values-driven financial strategy. And for this, you're just going to need some form of journal. Actually, you'll need it throughout the whole course. I want you to think about your short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. So it can be anything from taking a vacation, buying a car, saving for kids' college. During this part, I encourage you to pause, go ahead and write, and then unpause when you're done. Okay, now that you have your financial goals in place, now we're going to get them aligned to your values. In order to do that, first I want you to deep dive into what your values are. And we're going to go from lots of values and then get it down to 10 and then get it down to 3. There is a worksheet linked in this module, and you can either print it out as a PDF, or if you want to just use it online, you can use the Excel version. It can either be Excel or a Google Sheet. Then the document looks like this. So basically, these are a whole bunch of different values, and you can add more. You know, I left room to add one value there, but you can actually add as many values as you want. You could just make up all of them. You don't have to go off this list, but this list has a lot of ideas. And so for round one, in column R1, that means round one, for any of those values that you think, oh yeah, I resonate with that, just go ahead and put a check there. Sometimes people end up with 50 or 60 checks, and that's fine. Go ahead and just use your intuition and try to do it kind of quickly. Like if you have to pause a long time, it's probably not one of your core values. Next, for round two, you're going to now get it down to 10. So you're going from maybe 20 to 60 down to 10. And go ahead and make check marks in the second column, the R2 column, round two column. And what I'd recommend is if you have two that are kind of similar, like maybe you have, education and learning, for example, maybe pick one of those. Okay, so step 3 is now you're going to get down from 10 to 3. And the nice thing about this one is you can use, now that you're down to about 10 words that you connect with, 10 core values, you can sometimes combine a few of the core values into one sentence in order to more clearly define a word. So for example, let's say connection was one of your top 3 that you decided. But connection can mean lots of different things. I mean, you could like connecting ideas. You could really like connecting with your spouse. So for example, perhaps this person, when they said connection, meant I have compassion for and love connecting with a wide variety of people, centering inclusivity. So in this case, they used their values of compassion, love, and inclusivity to help define their core value of connection. And that way it encompasses, you can really almost get all 10 of your values in your top 3, but it's just a lot easier to remember 3 core values in your financial plan instead of trying to remember all 10 of them. The whole idea is to simplify as much as possible, and that's why we're trying to get you down to 3 core values. Keep in mind, as you're doing this, these core values can change over time. You're not locked into these 3 core values the rest of your life, so just trust yourself and go with your gut, and you should end up with something that feels authentic. Next, you're going to take your values that you have, and you're going to take your goals, and you're going to reprioritize your goals based on your values in light of your values. So for example, let's say you had core values of frugality and experience. And actually one of my clients had this. And then she had to decide, like, should she take a vacation? Because she had a vacation on there as a goal. And because she's frugal, you might think, oh no, a vacation, you can't take a vacation if you're frugal. But actually it was kind of the opposite that she needed, because she had been saving a lot for retirement because of her frugality, and what she really needed was a vacation. And so we actually put vacation first because she needed that experience, and that was even more important than the frugality. And in fact, she still had enough left over to save for retirement. Okay, so I told you you're going to write a lot in this one, right? So this is, again, the module with by far the most writing. Which values are most aligned within your career and business? Why? Do any changes need to be made to make the overall alignment greater? Which values are most aligned within your relationships and hobbies? Which values are most aligned with your spending and investing? and which values are most aligned with your charitable giving. And when I say charitable giving, I do mean either your time donation and how you're volunteering in the community or your cash donation. Take a moment on all of these to think about the why and do you need to make any changes? And unpause when you're done. After that reflection on how well your values are aligned, some of you will think, okay, great. I'm really good with my current job. And others of you kind of start to question things a little bit. So let's explore how can you stay in your job but still have increased impact and income, the overall theme of this module and class. So first of all, let's think about this scenario where your job is really aligned and impactful, but you're just not getting paid enough. Okay? Well, you could always layer in investing, which we'll learn about in module 4, or you can develop another line of business income or a line of business income, or you could maximize the money stretch through intentional income. And these are all tools that we'll learn. Okay, what if it's not a very impactful job and you really feel like it's not that aligned with your values, but it's really high paying? Well, then you could always layer in more time for values-based relationships and hobbies or spending. You can always make your spending more intentional. You can always do more charitable giving, whether that's time or money. Okay, and what if it's impactful and high paying, but you're just worried about sustainability? Like maybe you're kind of new to the job and you love it, but you wonder about the long-term effect of how intense it is. That's where module 7 comes in, the sabbaticals, as well as keeping a really healthy mindset in module 8. And then some of you just did that value of values activity and you did the reflection and you thought, whoa, things are really off. And you kind of just had a moment of panic, perhaps. I'm sure a lot of us have been there. I've been there. And I have a great career coach that I've worked with before. Her name is Chris Castillo of Empowered Achievers, and I want to give her credit for this first one about thinking about, do you really need to change the what or do you just need to change the how? And what she talks about is that when you really feel like you need to change, a mistake that a lot of people make, especially if you're a high achiever and your job is intense, sometimes you think, okay, I just have to totally quit and start a yoga studio or open an organic farm or a coffee shop. She always uses those examples, and I think it's perfect because haven't we all thought that? I mean, I think at least I've thought about it, a lot of people have, but you know, just ending your career to start something totally different, that's not going to solve all the problems. So it's really important to think, is what you're doing really the problem, or is it more like there's issues in, how? Maybe it's too many hours, maybe it's the wrong people. Maybe you're doing something really people facing when you should be more inward, like you're more introverted. There's lots of different ways that you can do a job, right? And so that's an important thing to think about in your reflection. And by the way, all these questions I am going to have you reflect on right now. Another reflection question, what are some skills that you're interested in learning about or helping others with? What would be exciting? Maybe it's something that's already in your current job that you could just add to, or maybe you start something on the side that's a completely different side business. Is the needed change as simple as just negotiating a different position with higher pay or better conditions like less hours? When it comes to a business, what skills do you enjoy that you just have a 10% edge at? And what type of should do you need to drop? For example, I should stay in teaching because there's a shortage of science teachers. I should stay in urology because I had many years of residency and fellowship. There's lots of shoulds, but which ones do you need to drop? Because this is about you and your values, and you can do whatever you want. That's really what this whole course is about, is designing your life the way you want it. Speaking of, who are you at your best? Your very best self. Are you there right now? Or is there another better version of yourself? And by better, I don't mean totally different, but just your best self. Who is that person? And finally, what is your intuition telling you right now? Now, for some of you, when you hear intuition, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But then some of you might kind of wonder, what do you mean by intuition? For some of us, we're not very in tune with it. And I was like that for a long time. I knew I was supposed to follow my intuition, but I had no idea how to do it. And I got a great piece of advice recently that what you do is when you ask a question, such as, what is your intuition telling you? All you do is you just listen to the first most obvious answer. And usually the simple answer, like it'll just be simple. Like sometimes it can be a yes or a no. Sometimes it's a little more complicated, but whatever that answer is probably what your intuition is looking at. And as you're kind of, going through all thing to keep in mind, I put up the not ikigai diagram again to just remind you that, you don't have to take this all quite so seriously in terms of having to fix the world in your career. Your career doesn't have to have everything. There's lots of paths, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to be a combination of career, relationships, spending, investing, all of that, where you will make a difference in the world. As a concluding thought to this module, just keep in mind that your income and your investments are tools, and they allow you to carry out the values the way that you want. In my life, the way that this happened just recently is I was able to move across the country because it was time for my parents. My parents, I've never lived by my parents since I've had kids, and that's been for 11 years, and they've never been around grandkids. And it was just time to move back, and it was hard on the family financially, but because of investments that we had made over several years, even though it was an inopportune time to buy a house and move, we were able to pull it off because of those tools. And so think about that, about how the more prepared you are, the more that you can make the right decisions for your family. The last reflection of Module 2. What questions do you have that you hope to get answered in Modules 3 through 8? And are there any action steps regarding your career that you need to take? I'll see you in Module 3. Nice work.